Who has ever mowed their grass? Yeah, that's what I thought. Every couple weeks, I mow my grass. I mow my neighbor's grass too, because why not? He pays me. So, today is the 12th. Today, our homework is 1-5. It is up on Schoology. It has been. Some of you already tried it. But if we talk about two neighbors that are mowing, anybody have neighbors that seem like they're kind of in your business? Yes. Like they're always like, what are they doing over there? Did they get a new car? Did they get a new fridge? So, we got two nosy neighbors. And this is a shrub, by the way. So if you would like to label, you can go ahead and label this as a shrub. To get the finest shrubbery in all of the land. It is a very nice shrubbery. Who knows my reference right now? Thank you. No. So, neighbor 1 is watching neighbor 2. And neighbor 1 says, hey, I mowed my yard faster than you. I'm faster. I'm better. And neighbor 2 is like, hey, calm yourself. I have a bigger yard than you do. So it, of course, is going to take me longer. Neighbor 1 says, yeah, I don't care how big your yard is. I'm better than you. I'm faster than you. And neighbor 2 says, you have no math to back that up. So, because, these neighbors want to figure it out, they decide to compute the rate at which they mow. So if we're going to compute a rate that involves time, would the time be the first value in the division or the second value in the division? Where would the time come? We have hands, right? I can use cards, but starting out, when we talk about a unit rate and we involve time, where does time normally come? Andrew? Yeah, it normally comes in the denominator, right? Because it's per minutes or per hour or per something like that. So, we're going to talk about how much grass per hour. So, neighbor 1 mows 4,200 square feet. Per tells me to divide. How long does it take them? 1 3/4 of an hour. But we don't like mixed numbers. What do we like better than mixed numbers? Improper. So take your 1 times your 4, add it to your 3, and we get 7/4. Now, because we're involving one fraction, we'd like to involve all fractions, so we can put 4,200 over 1. Then, Anthony, you're over there today. What can I do now? The reciprocal or the reciprocal, whichever you want to remember, but if you're going to write it out, make sure you write it out as reciprocal. So, we're going to keep, change, flip. Now, take a moment to think about cross-reducing, because hold on, Justin. I know you're about to try to get to the answer real fast, but when we talk about cross-reducing these past couple days, we look for something common they can both be divided by. I'll come back and fix that in a second, girls. Could 4,200 and 7, deciding what color to use, both be divided by the same thing? Is he? How do you know? Yeah. Ignore the zeros for a minute. Can 42 be divided by 7? Yeah, what is that? 6. So when I divide this by 7, I get 6 with those 2 zeros. And then 7 divided by 7 makes 1. Do I need a calculator anymore? Nope. No. Because I cross-reduced, I can multiply straight across the top. What would 6 times 4 be? 24, which then put your 2 zeros back on. They mowed at 2,400 feet squared, or square feet, per hour. 2,400 square feet per hour. Now remember, a square foot is about this size. It's 1 foot by 1 foot which means that when I multiply them together, 1 times 1 gives me 1 foot, but it's squared since I had 1 foot times 1 foot. So, if we talk about 2,400 of those, that's a pretty big amount of space. CJ? Well, yeah, but I mean, you could have done the long multiplication and stuff, but when we reduce those values, it makes it a lot easier to work with. So yeah, we never need a calculator, but sometimes with big numbers, we're more likely to grab a calculator. If I make my numbers smaller and I have no division left to do, it makes it super easy. So try neighbor 2 and see if their rate was the same. Try it on your own. Do the square footage divided by time. These shelves are not good shelves. A couple of them have been bent by the Does that work? We now want another shrubbery. A nicer shrubbery. A bigger shrubbery. Those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm not just crazy. It's from a movie that's really funny. Comes from Monty Python and the Quest of the Holy Grail. The knights who say "Nee" ask them to go get a shrubbery. And it's a 3-headed knight, but they are the knights who say "Nee," and they essentially have buckets on their head. It's really funny. Go watch it. We did that for a skit at Scout Camp. Yeah, it's a pretty famous skit. So, anyone confident enough with their process to talk me all the way through neighbor 2? Izzy, first hand shooting up.
Okay, so I set it up like 5,400 over 1 divided by 4.
Now wait, divided by 4 ninths? I think you're looking at the next step. Because to start, 2 1/4 hours would be 9/4. Be cautious about skipping steps. This then becomes, after keep, change, flip, 5,400 times 4 ninths. Now again, think about cross reduction, because it makes life so easy. Xavier, can we cross reduce?
Yeah.
What?
5,400 doesn't turn to 600.
Yeah, because think about 54 divided by 9. What would that be? 6, and then you put your 2 zeros back on. So this becomes 600. My 9 becomes 1. What's 600 times 4?
6 times 4 is 24, and then you have 2 zeros.
Yep. They mow at exactly the same speed. Plot twist. Bum, bum, bum. So then they just continue to battle and argue over other things like holiday decorations or who has the best trick-or-treat candy. But these neighbors cannot figure out who is better based off their mowing because they both mow at the same speed. There was always one street in Coshocton that we knew had the full size and some of them the king size candy bars. Oh, for the record, yes. Assuming anyone know what night trick or treat actually is?
It's on a Monday. I know.
That's
That's trash. I know.
Halloween. Football should be over by then, I think. Halloween's on a Monday. Football's over in like a week, isn't it?
It's over this week.
Yeah, there you go.
Last game.
So, hold up. Now, I want to tile my kitchen. I really do. True story. My wife is stopping me from putting up a backsplash, but one weekend she's going to come home and I'm just going to be started. So, if I'm going to dive into a tile project, I want to practice. before you ever do anything final product, you want to do a rough draft. You're going to do a practice. So I go and I buy some tiles, and I buy a plank of wood. I say, I'm going to practice tiling on this plank of wood, so when I go to tile on the wall, I know what I'm doing. So first thing I ask myself is, what is the ratio of length of the tile to length of the board? Because I want to know how many tiles I would be able to fit on this board. So if I know that ratio, that's going to tell me how many will fit. So I'm going to scoot this down so I have a little bit of space to do work. The order of the question tells me the order of my problem. Be careful. There's something up here that if you take a couple seconds to really look at this situation, should immediately alert you, needs your attention before we do anything else. Bella? Why is that an issue? Yards and feet are not the same units. To set up a ratio, what do we know about our units? They need to match, right? Because a ratio is going to come out to just be a fraction. So, to set up this ratio, I need to convert either feet into yards or yards into feet. Is it easier to go to the bigger units with less numbers or to the smaller units with more of them? So should I turn my feet into yards or should I turn my yards into feet? So feet into yards, how many feet are in a yard? 3. So here I would have to actually divide by 3. Because if you want to know how many yards, 1 foot is 1/3 of a yard. So it would be 1/3 division by 3. To turn yards into feet, I would get to multiply by 3. Now which do you think is easier? Yards to feet. It's always easier to go to the smaller unit. That doesn't mean it's better. It just means it's easier. So here, I want you to set up, we have 1/4 yards, and that label would actually be on top, wherever you have space. And you could write it in this plank. Actually, let's write it in the plank. So you have 1/4 of a yard. We want to convert that. So we use the conversion factor relating yards and feet. Now, if I want to get rid of my label of yards, where should my label of yards go in my red fraction, in my conversion factor? Hayden? On the bottom so that it will cancel, which means feet has to be on top, and then I fill in my numbers. How many feet, how many yards? Well, this is a conversion factor, so they have to be equal. How many feet are in a yard? 3. So 3 feet equal 1 yard. I see some people that I doubt actually wrote this down. This is important for when we do lots of converting all year. So I get 3, oh, cannot see that. I get 3/4, but now my yard labels cancel out, and it's just feet. And then my 1/6, when I multiply by 3, I get 3/6, which reduces to 1/2. So we have 3/4 on top and 1/2 on the side, on the edge. I agree, we have not. All we've done is convert. Sometimes math has a lot of prep. Now I can actually set up my ratio. So I'm going to reference back. No, I'll leave this here for now. What would come first in my ratio based on how this is set up? Joe, making sure that you were actually here. I should check the attendance list occasionally. Which value would come first? So we're talking about length. We're going to call the long sides my length, just because normally that's how we look at it. But guys, remember that in geometry, like if I labeled this length, width, and height, I can turn the shape and immediately the names all change. So it doesn't really matter. Like those names don't have to be rigid now. So I could call this the length, but then this would have to also be the length. Normally we talk about the long side being the length. So which would come first, Joe? Based on this statement. Yeah, so what value do I write first? 1/4, because the length of the tile is 1/4. So for A up here, I have 1/4 the length of the tile. It's a ratio, so I set it up as division. What's my next value then, Joe? Careful. We want length of tile to length of board. So now we go over to my board and we look at how long it is. 3/4, because it has to be feet and feet. I can then, Casey, you had your hand up, do you know? Yeah, I can keep, change, flip it. So 1/4 times 4/3. Who sees what we could do here? Shane? Cross reduce. And this one, because they're the same, actually cross cancels. And these both become 1. 1 times 1 gives me a numerator of 1. 1 times 3 gives me a denominator of 3. My ratio is 1:3, which tells me what about tiles compared to the board? The tile is 1/3 the size of the board. So if I go to my board and I talk about how many tiles will fit, I know that I can fit 1, 2, 3, because it's a comparison of 1 to 3. The length of one tile will fit 3 times over here. And I know I didn't draw it perfectly. Probably needs to be closer to that. But that's what that ratio tells me. So, now area. Area takes us to a little bit harder. How do I find the area of any rectangle? Length times width, right? So the 2 dimensions that I have, because really it doesn't matter if it's the length and the width. It could be like length and height, or called different things. Get these labels back there. So I want area of tile. I'll move that to the board since green was the board last time. Area of the board comes second. Area of the tile comes first. I don't know how to find the area of the tile. We know it's length times width, but we're dealing with fractions, so it's a bit more challenging. Fraction times fraction, right? So CJ, how do I do fraction times fraction? 1/5. Oh, 1/6. Yeah, I didn't know if it looked weird on your print. So to find area of this tile, I do 1/4, that's really dark, times 1/6, and the area becomes 1/24 of a foot squared. So essentially, it would take 24 of those tiles to cover up a 1 foot square space. So even though these kind of look big, they're not very big. 1/4 of a foot is actually 3 inches. 1/6 of a foot is actually 2 inches. So this is a 3-inch by 2-inch tile, pretty small. Approximately, probably about that. This is probably about 3 inches. That's close to 2. Maybe about the size of my palm, maybe. So area of the board, try this on your own using your feet measurements. Try not to look up here. Area of the board using feet measurements. Any issues? That squared only relates to the label. So my area of my board comes out to be 3/8. So a little under a half of a square foot. So I have a pretty small practice space that I'm working on. Because I mean, it's half a foot by 3/4 of a foot, not that big. So now I need to set up that ratio. Not here today. Kylie. So the order of the question tells me the order of my math. So what do I set up here?
So you would do 3/4 times 1.
So the order of my question, area of the tile to the area of the board. So which needs to come first?
1/24.
Ah, the 1/24 needs to come first because that's area of the tile. Then it's a ratio.
And then to 3/8.
Yeah. Then, because I have a fraction divided by a fraction, Michaela, what can we do with our fraction divided by a fraction? You guys can always pass or phone a friend. I have to continually remind that at the beginning of the year. Keep, change, flip. Because I don't want to do the division, I change it to multiplication. So I instead make 1/24 times 8/3. Can I cross reduce? Yes. Again, you don't have to, but it makes life easier. So my 24 and my 8 can both divide by 8. Your brain's ahead of yourself. The 24 becomes 3. The 8 becomes 1. I go across the top. 1 times 1 is 1. I go across the bottom. 3 times 3 is not. What does the ratio of 1/9 tell me when I'm talking about area? What does so the area of the tile is 1/9 the area of the board. So the space the tile takes up is 1/9 the space the board takes up. Andrew?
You would need 9 tiles to fill up the whole board.
You would need 9 tiles to fill up the whole board. So we knew that the top row can have 3 wide, and each row can have 3 wide. So then that really tells me I would have 9 total on the board because the ratio is 1:9. Does that make sense? Preguntas, which means questions. Sí, señor, en español. The image on a digital camera, which is what I struggle with when I go to take pictures at your guys' events, is 1.5 inches by 1 inch. Very small screen. When we print it out, it ends up on a print that's 1/2 foot by 1/3 of a foot. What is the ratio of area of the screen to area of the print? I want you guys to try this on your own, but I want to get you started. What's the first concern that you see when you look at this problem? Ooh, haven't heard from you yet, Lily. We have inches for my screen, and we have feet for my print. It's easier to go to the smaller units. What's my smaller units here? Inches. Hayden, what's my conversion factor to go inches to feet? 12. So if I start with 1/2 foot, that label actually lives on top. My conversion factor that I multiply with will involve feet on bottom, inches on top. 12 inches is 1 foot. From that point, I want you guys trying to do this work on your own for at least a couple minutes. If you are stuck, ask a neighbor, stick up a hand, I can help you. You want to convert your feet to inches, then find each area, then set up the ratio. So that's really 6 inches. So I want to write that somewhere. And you could do it off to the side right here. Just to keep it written somewhere. So you could write 6 inches. Just so you have it written down. Then if you think about a third, what's a third of 12? Or 12 times 1/3, or 12 divided by 3. 12 divided by 3. Yeah, 4. So this print is actually 6 inches by 4 inches. So if you want to by 4 inches, then you have your actual print dimension. Then to find the area, we're going to multiply these together to find the area of the screen. We'll multiply these together to find the area of the print. And then we'll compare them to our pattern. So I'm going to start with almost whole class. Yeah. You have a question? We got the 6 and the 4, right?
Yeah.
So then we need to find the area. To multiply the length and the width dimensions.
6 times 4.
That'll get you area. So, hopefully you converted these values into inches. I find out that my length here was 6 inches. What was my width of the print? Or what was a third of a foot? Izzy? Yeah, if we do a third times 12, we get 4 inches. So my print is actually 6 by 4. And the area on that print is pretty easy to figure out. Area would be 6 times 4, 24. Label it inches squared. Because it was inches times inches, we get inches squared. Now I need to find the area of my screen. Now I have a dimension of 1.5 and a dimension of 1. So if I have length times width, what's anything times 1? Itself, whatever the start number was. So 1.5 times 1 will be the start number that we had. So this area is actually 1.5, or I like impropers better, 3/2 inches squared. Anyone confident to set up this ratio? All we really need to know is the order of the setup, and from there, like all of them, we keep, change, flip it, and then multiply through. Justin, is that a hand? What?
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Shane?
3/2 divided by 24/1.
Yeah, the camera screen came first. So we set up 3/2 compared to or divided by, exactly what Shane said, 24 we make into a fraction, 24/1. Thank you very much, Shane. Colin, at this point, because I have a fraction divided by a fraction, what do?
You basically keep change flip.
We keep change flip to make it.
3/2, so 3/2 times 1/24.
Now, let's make life easy. Can we cross reduce?
Yes.
Xavier, what cross reduces?
24 and 3.
24 and 3, they both divide by?
8. Oh, no.
Your brain's ahead of you. This becomes 8 because you divided by 3. So we divide both of these by 3. Again, if that doesn't make sense to you, or if you're still struggling with it, I can make you some practice work for that, like just extra, whatever you want to do. You don't have to do it. You never have to cross reduce. You would just end up reducing at the end, and we get 1/8. What does that mean? What statement could we say when I relate the area of this object to the area of that object, and it's a relationship of 1/8? Hayden? Sorry, yes, my bad.
Yeah.
That was totally on purpose. I forgot about the 2 there. That's how easy it is to make a mistake, guys. That was a genuine one. That was not me trying to trick you. I do sometimes try to trick you, but you can normally tell my inflection often changes. So what does 1/16 mean? What if I want to relate the size of the print to the size of the screen? Hayden? want to say the print is. Now, when we compared, we did screen to print. So if I start with print, I actually want to turn around my ratio. The print, I'd like you to write this down if you can, guys. The print is 16 times the screen size. The print is 16 times the screen size. Because this tells me the screen size is 1/16 of the print. But talking in 1/16 of something is a lot more difficult than saying it is 16 times something. Questions? So if I ask you to do this on your own, the process makes sense now? So, who could summarize the process we took on the Got It from the beginning to the end? Xavier?
Okay, so first we did like that we had to find the area of the print, and so that was 1/24.
What did we have to do first? We changed something. Changed something.
We multiplied it by 12.
Yeah, why'd we do that?
Because
We were wanting something to match.
inches to feet.
Yeah, so we had to match up our units. Then we found the area. Then the rest of it was pretty easy.
Yeah, so we just found that, and then we did not the same thing, but we just found the one for, and that was the one for the camera screen that was 3/2,
Mm-hmm.
and then we changed it.
Yeah. Then we set up the ratio, compare, multiply through, and simplify if you need. So, let's jump to the back Got It, because we're not going to get to everything today. This back Got It is pretty important because it utilizes our distance formula, which we call our dirt formula. This is telling me that distance equals, anyone know? Rate times time. I have 4 minutes left, so please stay focused. Please keep writing down our notes. Huh? How do you already know the answer? So if I asked you how long will it take you to get to the stadium, do you know that answer? So we know our distance. The stadium is 7/8 of a mile away because that's where I parked. I Google mapped it. I know. I know that my little brother can only walk at a maximum speed. By the way, that's a lie. I don't have a little brother. I like to tell you guys when I lie to you. I only have older siblings. My little brother can only walk at 3¼ miles an hour. So that lame-o, he's going to slow me down. I could run if I really wanted to, but then I leave him behind and he could get kidnapped by, whatever. That's why I wasn't going to go there. So, what is it that we don't know? What is it that we don't know? How long? Our time. So again, think about how could I get the time, column, how could I get the time by itself? How could I get rid of the fact that it's attached to something else? Do you know, Hayden? But that's not the time it takes me to walk there. That's how long till the game starts. To get rid of, and guys, please show this work on your paper. To get time by itself, I just divide by rate on both sides, which gives me a new formula that time is actually equal to distance divided by the rate. But this time is going to be in hours. Because our rate is in hours, our time is going to be in hours. Please make sure you don't think this is 10 hours. Okay, I still have a minute. I know they're releasing early, but I get till 34. It's dumb to stop in the middle of a problem. That's the reason I'm continuing. So, time is equal to distance divided by rate. So set up, this is what happens when everyone releases early. My guys want to go. Our distance is what? How far is the stadium? 7/8. You guys can just kind of shout it out at this point. As a improper, what's my rate? 13/4. We keep change flip to make it multiplication.
7/8 times 4 over 13.
Now we can cross reduce. So we can divide by 4 and get a 1 and a 2. In the end, our time is 7/26. But that's 7/26 of what? Of an hour. How do I go from hours to minutes? Times 60. When I multiply by 60, and then we're done here, guys. When I multiply 7/26 by 60, we get 16.15 minutes. So sadly, you will not make it for kickoff. Try your homework. Bring questions to class tomorrow. We are reviewing for your mastery, which will be on Friday. Have a great day.